Hello there, guys. So, welcome back to my learning series, and now we're down to episode number 2. So, for today, we're going to talk about planning, change management plan, or planning for change, and related stuff coined to planning itself. So, for sure, before anything else, if we are to recall the things that happened months ago or years ago, for sure some of you would say that some of the things had taken place for a certain reason, and some of those things were said to be unplanned for or unanticipated, or something that you do not expect to experience or to savor. But yes, that's actually correct, because there are certain things that are happening in our daily lives, be it in our personal aspect of our life, in our work, or in the routine day-to-day tasks, no, that are happening in our lives on a day-to-day basis or on a daily basis, routine as what we call it. But there are things that are said to be critical or vital, that requires a degree of preparation. You do not just expect for something to happen along the course of your existence without having the ability to prepare for all the ifs, the turns, and the turn of events, or the change of instances that might happen, or circumstances that may come along the way. So there is quite a number of differences between science when we talk about a certain phenomenon or series of phenomena, and there is also a certain explanation that may or can support mysteries in life that are happening. But for this specific learning session, we're going to talk about planning as something that is scientific or systematic. So we plan for something before it happens, and we are trying to prepare for all the possibilities that may come along the way. And you cannot afford to just say that let things happen. If it happens, then so be it. Kaya sera, sabi nga nila, di ba? So that's not the path that we're going to tread as regards to this discussion for today's session that we're going to explore on when we talk about planning. So planning is just one of the critical or pivotal competencies required among managers or leaders, or even non-managers or non-leaders, as we call it. Let's just put it this way. Everyone should be able to execute the science behind planning. Science, because it has to be systematic, it has to be evidence-based, and it has to be organized in such a way that you critically scrutinize and determine or identify the areas that you have to work on with, and at the same time you also consider the risks that might occur during the course of the execution of a specific task, or deliverable, or project, or let's say even a goal. When you plan, or when you have determined the goals for the organization, there has to be specific ways on how you're going to achieve those goals. And the first step usually starts from the planning phase. So perhaps some of you here have already participated or have already done strategic management or strategic planning, as we call it. And for those who have not yet experienced the process of doing the processes or the steps or the phases in the strategic planning or strategic management process, this is a good avenue for you to get some information or ideas as regards to the prerequisites for the actual execution or for the actual maneuvering of the strategic planning or strategic management process. So now, going back to planning itself, just imagine before you go to bed at night, then in anticipation of tomorrow's coming, you are there trying to think about the things that you're going to prepare for the next day. So same thing with planning as a critical step in the management process, or even planning as a competency, one of the competencies required among managers or leaders. So in planning, you are ensuring that you have laid down all the aspirations and at the same time the directions being set before each and every one of us. And in this specific step, wherein we plan for changes, we plan for the organization's direction, planning for or even addressing the possible risks that might have taken place in the organization when you continue to tread the journey towards the achievement of the organizational goals and objectives. So you can never say that you can execute actions or interventions without going back to planning. So there you have it. In planning, you have to make sure that you have the data available. You have to ensure that you have all the information required of you, because planning jumpstarts the progression towards the next phases of the strategic management process. And in the planning phase, you are being backed up by the information or data that you have gathered as regards to your environmental scanning, be it internal or external scanning. You consider also the factors that might have contributed to the achievement of the organization's goals and objectives. That's why you also consider the model, the PASTEL model, for example. You consider the political, the economic, the social, even the technological, the legal, and the environmental factors. So there are quite a number of models or frameworks that actually assist or support us in the planning phase. So what else that we should know about planning? In an organization wherein you're being certified or being assessed or evaluated as per the ISO 9001-2015 or in the QMS quality management system. By the way, there are so many standards that can be utilized, but allow me to utilize rather ISO as regards to this discussion. And there's a specific clause in the ISO 9001-2015 quality management system that really highlights and presents the relevance and significance of planning for changes. Don't worry, I'm not going to educate you or walk you through on the various standards of the quality management system of ISO 9001-2015. I'm not going to bore you or to bombard you with a lot of information as regards to the standards being set forth by the ISO 9001-2015. But anyway, with planning for changes, for example, before you change something or before you transition to the tweaking or rearrangement, re-engineering, or realignment of the things or the processes, the structures, the setup of the organization, you have to undergo a specific process wherein you plan for changes. See, even changes. Perhaps prior to this session, some of you might think that you can never plan for changes because changes are something that are unexpected and so on and so forth. But in the context of ensuring the quality management system, as an example, changes can still be prepared for through undergoing the process of planning for changes or change management plan. So the planning for change or change management plan actually is somewhat the same with the traditional process in the planning phase or in the planning procedure, and it requires a certain information such as you determine the impact or the degree to which a specific change or transitions or revisions might have impacted the various stakeholders or interested parties. So same thing with the traditional planning that we do on a day-to-day basis. When you plan for something, you also consider the multiple factors required of you, because you can never plan for a specific thing, task, project, deliverable, without considering all the possible factors or elements that may contribute or might affect your execution of the planning step. So on a day-to-day basis, for example, let's take it for example in my field where I am practicing my expertise or my profession. I am in the healthcare industry, and planning is something that is being executed on various processes or procedures. Planning can be applied in the organizational context, wherein you do strategic management plan or strategic planning activity. You also consider planning for changes or change management plan as per quality management system. You also do planning if you want to innovate or to create something that would improve the services to be delivered by the organization or your company or industry. So those are just examples of activities or scenarios that warrant the execution of the planning phase. And it is also very critical that in the conduct of the planning, you have to involve not only yourself, but you have to consider also various people or stakeholders that might support your creation or development of the planning procedure or planning step. You have to consider the people. Aside from the fact that two heads are better than one, planning, most especially if you are planning not on a personal level, but you plan for the organization, you can never plan alone for the organization. It requires a combination of various heads or various brains or neurons to function, to collaborate, and to engage, and to be coordinated with one another, to interrelate with one another for you to generate or to arrive to a specific planning design or planning context that can really be more effective in the achievement of the organization's goals and objectives, or even aspirations, mission, and vision. So there. Also, it is very critical to determine or to acknowledge or recognize that in a specific organization, if planning is being executed to its full potential or to its maximum, that goes to say that planning is appropriately and critically being executed or implemented, then that's also a very good indicator that the organization is trying to ensure that the laying down of actions, strategies, operational interventions for the organization are something that can never be compromised, or let's say things should never be settled on a substandard level. It has to really evolve in such a way that you are identifying, developing, and coming up for something that would really provide greater impact in the achievement of the organization's goals and objectives. So I hope that this session is somehow relevant to all of you, even in our day-to-day lives. If we apply this on our day-to-day basis, if you want to, you know what, it's not, I do not want to say that I agree on being optimistic. You think positively on the things that will happen in your life, because you believe that things will just fall into places. There are specific places in the right time, in the right instances, through faith and so on and so forth. Those things are actually true. Yes, I have been through those phases and circumstances wherein you really have to rely on, let things happen as they are being called for to occur or to take place. But as I continue to embrace learning and the continual advancement and the improvement of science, and at the same time evidences and knowledge and awareness, I have come to realize that things in life should be better planned for, to ensure that you are well prepared on the day-to-day tasks that you're going to undertake. It will also let you know or understand that there are specific aspects in the planning that might fail or may not be fully realized, and there are risks involved along the way that sometimes planning alone cannot suffice or could not address the sudden shift or turn of events that might happen along your way. So that is why, if we want to really prepare the roads or the paths that await us, we have also to plan for it. Do not just jump from one specific point going to another without thinking, without scanning, without considering the things that are happening in your environment or around you. And if you fail to do so, then that's like a suicide. It's like you are doing something without having knowledge at all, or perhaps if you have the knowledge, then how substantial your knowledge can be or may be as regards to your the initiation of your actions and interventions. So there is no harm in planning. Actually, research shows that the more that you engage yourself in doing the steps of planning, or the more that you prepare for the things that are happening in your life, it gives you also the opportunity and at the same time the greater avenue to appreciate the sudden turn of events that might happen along the way. Which goes to show that if you plan for something, you're setting a specific degree or level wherein if the time comes that you fail, you'll really not be too affected or too disturbed by the failure, because you have foreseen that failure may happen along the way. And that can only be made possible if you plan for it. PLAN, planning. You plan for everything that you do. You plan for something that's tremendous in terms of its impact in your life, in your work, or in your day-to-day activities. You plan for something no matter how big or small the activity or event or activity, let's say, or a project, for example. You have to undergo the process of planning. And in those times wherein you are seated and where you are right now, and you are thinking about doing something, you cannot just settle for convincing yourself that things happen, and we would explore all those things the moment we cross the bridge, something like that. So those are examples of options that you can consider if you are, let's say, a less organized person, or you are like a lackadaisical or a happy-go-lucky person, that whatever it is that might happen along the way, then so be it. I'm going to respond to it, and I believe and I trust my capability to adapt to sudden changes. Yes, that's also true. Psychology would say that there are specific personalities that exist wherein human would try to continue to immerse themselves or himself or herself in a situation wherein he or she is unprepared, and to try to test his or her behavior and how he or she is going to respond, react to those sudden shifts or changes, just like stressors in their lives. So, either way, you can venture on all those things. But as regards to my point of view, there is a certain degree wherein your ability to foresee for a specific outcome or for the risks that might happen, for the shifts that might happen along the way, would be something that would tell you that your degree of learning from all those circumstances would be worth all the while when you plan for it. So, friends and colleagues, do not underestimate the power of planning. In everything that we do, let's plan for it. On a day-to-day basis, let us armor ourselves with the trust and confidence, and at the same time with specific competencies wherein before we do something, we are guaranteed and we are assured that we have thought of all those things before we take the first move. If you want to trailblaze in this highly complex environment as of the present times, not being a trailblazer is also an indicator that you are up for a challenge. But you do not just trailblaze, or you do not just represent or volunteer to be in the forefront or to be in the front line without planning at all, of course. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. So I hope that you have learned something from today's session. So let's remember that planning is an important element that we need to ensure that is present and existing in our day-to-day lives, be it on a personal level, professional, or when you apply that on specific instances or circumstances on your life on a day-to-day basis. And you will really appreciate you yourself as a person, as an individual, on how you're going to structure and design yourself or re-engineer yourself as regards to the planning that you have prepared and the plans that you have laid down before you before jumping into a specific scenario on a day-to-day basis. So thank you everyone for watching. I hope you learned, and I'm excited to still see you on my next episode. So again, this is Jake Spades PH. Thank you for watching my learning series number 2 about planning. Take care and see you around. Bye.